My name is Jake. Had always considered myself a simple and reliable person, accustomed to honesty and openness. And that evening it was Ashley who immediately caught my attention with her infectious laugh and dazzling smile, melting the ice in my heart at once. Outwardly modest and kind, she radiated an aura of mystery, as if a whole universe of secrets and adventures lay hidden behind those gentle eyes. We met through mutual friends, and from that moment on, our relationship began to develop rapidly, like a spring stream gathering strength after winter's slumber. Our first encounters were suffused with romance and sincerity. We strolled through the evening streets, discussing our dreams for the future, sharing funny stories from our pasts, and planning a joint journey I had longed for, a road trip across the country. Ashley told me how she had grown up in a small coastal town, where she dreamed of becoming an artist, and how her parents had always supported her ambitions. In her face I saw a glimmer of hope and a thirst for freedom, something that had been missing in the monotony of my everyday existence. There was something in her words and gaze that made me believe that together we could overcome any obstacle. In those moments it felt as if our love could endure any trial time might bring. We laughed until tears streamed down our faces, sharing our most cherished dreams, and sometimes discussing how we enriched each other's lives with our ideals. In her presence, I felt that I was transforming into a better version of myself, discovering aspects of life that had previously been hidden or unnoticed. One summer evening, when the sky was sprinkled with stars, Ashley confided her plans to move to a big city, where she dreamed of launching a career in the world of art and fashion. I believed that these conversations were laying the foundation for our shared future, and with great enthusiasm I imagined us conquering that immense, alluring world together. The first months of our relationship passed in a blur, enveloped in romance and a sense of boundless love. I recall us packing together for our new life, her unwavering belief in our shared dreams, and my constant effort to brighten her days with attention, care, and support. Our conversations never ceased. We talked about everything, from the minutiae of daily life to the grand questions of existence. I gradually became a part of her fascinating story, and it seemed that nothing could shatter the warm, vibrant world we were building together. People around us often remarked, "You are so happy, Jake. Ashley is like an angel on earth." And I would reply that happiness is a state of soul that one experiences when a truly important person is by your side. At the same time, I couldn't help noticing how natural and at ease she was in social settings. Her friendliness and ease of communication drew people to her, and I, of course, was proud to have won over the heart of such an extraordinary woman. Yet, gradually, I began to notice small details that later became premonitions of the pain to come. Sometimes, when we attended gatherings together, I saw her gaze lingering on other men, saw how she smiled at new acquaintances, especially when conversations turned to topics of fashion, art, and life in a big city. At first I dismissed these moments as nothing more than her natural sociability. However, every so often a feeling of awkwardness would creep over me, as if I were merely a bystander in her personal theater of life. I initially brushed these hints aside, attributing them to my own imagination, even though inside something tightened painfully, and I began to realize that something was not quite right. We continued building our relationship, and I watched with interest as Ashley's life unfolded. There was still that glimmer in her eyes, a spark of the dream of a big city, of fresh beginnings, while I seriously considered how our paths might eventually diverge. Yet, for the time being, these thoughts were mere shadows on the horizon, and our present remained vibrant and filled with events, laughter, conversation, and carefree moments. We weathered both joyous and difficult times together, and I sincerely believed that every barrier would only strengthen our bond. I would tell my friends how occasionally her nature would light up unexpectedly, how she could weave cold determination and warm tenderness together in an instant, leaving behind nothing but a pleasant aftertaste. Our relationship seemed flawless, as if fate itself had designed it just for us. But as is often the case in life, when you think you've reached the peak of happiness, the trials begin. One chilly autumn evening, when the wind was sending fallen leaves swirling along the streets, my phone rang at my doorstep. That call was the harbinger of changes I could never have imagined. A conversation that initially appeared casual, but soon unveiled the first signs of the most agonizing period of my life. Some time passed, and questions began haunting my mind, tormenting my heart. Why did her voice carry a secret? Why was she concealing some of her plans from me? Why did her face pale slightly when she mentioned meetings with friends from the past? Despite these unsettling signals, I tried to maintain control and consoled myself with the thought that love could overcome any misunderstandings. However, as our relationship deepened, it became increasingly clear that behind the bright facade lay a shadow, threatening to engulf everything we had so carefully built over the years. Recalling those moments now, I feel an odd blend of nostalgia and pain, as if I were trying to recreate the surviving hues of memory on a canvas, yet with every brushstroke a new wound opens up. The endless evenings when we sat on the couch watching old movies, or the walks along the river where Ashley recounted her childhood stories, now seem like myths designed to comfort my wounded heart. Still, deep inside I always knew that happiness was a complex, multifaceted matter, and that behind every ray of sunshine might lurk a storm, ready at any moment to wash away the remnants of warmth and comfort. Not long after, when the summer heat gradually gave way to the coolness of fall, I found myself confronting the first troubling signs that the world I had so passionately built around us was tenuous and deceiving. One evening, coming home from work, I noticed a note left on the table by an unknown hand. It contained what might have been dismissed as a mere prank, if not for the bitter undercurrent that alerted me that something was amiss. The note had a brief message with vague hints that later took on a sinister significance. I initially dismissed it, attributing it to a random misunderstanding, yet an inner sense of foreboding began to swell like dark clouds gathering before a storm. Those premonitory moments, when every small hint feels like the foreshadowing of future catastrophe, never leave you. Deep inside, I realize that love is not always enough justification for trust, and sometimes the consequences of revelations are utterly devastating. These thoughts tormented me over long, sleepless nights, as I struggled to reconcile the sweet memories with the bitter truth hidden behind every smiling glance from Ashley. I clung to the hope that our love was unbreakable, that even the worst betrayal could be overcome by the power of our feelings. But fate had other plans. And then came the day when the veils of deception were irrevocably lifted, and I stood amid the ruins of what I once thought was true. The realization hit me with the full force of betrayal. It wasn't merely a lapse in attention or a mistaken glance. It was the culmination of secret messages and subtle signs that I had desperately tried to ignore. The painful crescendo of doubts reached a point where every laughter, every whispered word, became imbued with suspicion. It felt as if a storm was gathering, ready to shatter the delicate balance of our dreams with a single, devastating blow. Weeks passed after those unsettling signs, and I gradually came to terms with the idea that, as in the movies, every story inevitably takes an unexpected turn. The first hints of infidelity began appearing here and there, deepening my doubts about the veracity of the love I cherished. On one particularly gloomy day, when the weather was as bleak as my internal state, I noticed more and more discrepancies in Ashley's behavior. Our nightly phone calls, once a cherished ritual, became fewer, and her responses grew curt and distant. Where once we had talked about our dreams until the early hours of the morning, her words now carried a detached tone, as if an invisible barrier had arisen between us, growing thicker with every passing day. At first I sought a rational explanation. Perhaps her job had become excessively demanding, or maybe some changes were occurring in her life that I was unaware of. I tried to console myself with the familiar solace of our nightly walks through the city, where my thoughts, like wandering clouds, searched for an explanation. But the harder I tried to rationalize her actions, the more overwhelming the dread became. I began scrutinizing every gesture, every word as a potential clue. There was the instance when she gave a slight smirk at someone on the street. There was the time she engaged in a late-night phone conversation with someone. And occasionally I noticed her gaze lingering on unfamiliar faces in the crowd. Every detail, like a shard of fragile glass, cut into me, causing me to doubt whether there was anything left to trust. One rainy autumn day, as droplets tapped against the windows, I inadvertently discovered text messages on her phone in which she was exchanging words with someone named Michael. A name that, until that moment, had held no real meaning for me beyond a casual mention in her stories of the past. But now, looking at those lines, I understood that something far deeper than a mere friendly chat was hidden between the words. The messages, imbued with warmth and closeness, squeezed my heart with pain and confusion. Each message appeared to be undeniable proof that the secret she so adeptly concealed was about to erupt into the open. In that instant, I felt utterly betrayed and alone, as if I were drowning in a sea of lies and doubts, with every wave bringing a new barrage of unanswered questions. Often, when one faces betrayal, there is a tendency to search for a reason within oneself, to blame one's own shortcomings in the hope of finding an explanation. I recalled moments from our life together, trying to pinpoint even a spark that could justify this agony. But the deeper I delved into my memories, the clearer it became that it all had started long before these messages appeared. Maybe I had been too trusting, allowing myself to believe unconditionally that our love was eternal. Or perhaps I had been too blind to the obvious signs heralding this tragedy. These questions haunted me every night, tormenting my consciousness like sharp knives piercing my very heart. Yet one fact remained undeniable. True love was meant to be pure, sincere, and without any room for double standards or hidden secrets. Day by day, a horrifying realization began to take root within me, that my heart was slowly dying from this relentless pain. In moments of solitude, I sought solace in long, aimless walks under the rain, trying in vain to decipher the answers hidden in the rhythm of falling droplets on the glass. It seemed as if nature itself, with its somber melancholy, empathized with my despair, reflecting my inner torment in every tear-shaped droplet. But reality was unyielding. Those texts with Michael were the final signal that our once shared path had irrevocably diverged, and the love that once warmed my soul was irretrievably lost. Thus began the second phase of our story, a phase filled with fear, uncertainty, and the unbearable pain of confronting the fact that everything I believed eternal was nothing but an illusion. Recalling those days now, I understand that nothing in matters of the heart is ever simple. Even as I tried to gather the strength to make sense of the situation, one thought stubbornly persisted. How could I so easily lose what I had deemed unshakable? My soul was torn to pieces by the injustice of it all, and my mind desperately sought reasons where none could be found. Those agonizing thoughts followed me relentlessly for weeks, as I tried to reconcile the once sweet memories with the bitter truth that lay masked behind every friendly smile from Ashley. Gradually, I began to realize that accepting the pain was the only way to begin healing. Each new day offered a fresh chance to look at the world in a different light, to understand that life goes on, regardless of everything. Yet that stark confrontation with betrayal taught me lessons steeped in cruelty, yet necessary for growth. And so, amidst a torrent of questions and inner conflicts, I started to move forward, gathering the shattered fragments of my soul and trying once more to believe that perhaps love could heal even the deepest wounds. I cannot say that I immediately accepted the fate that had befallen me. No, acceptance came slowly, through pain, doubt, and endless introspection. I continued to live, endeavoring to reconstruct my identity, pondering every small detail and every word spoken by Ashley, as if each contained a clue to the mystery of our existence. At the same time, within me a new flame began to kindle, a desire to find the strength for rebirth, to leave behind illusions and boldly press on regardless of what lay ahead. Days passed, and it felt as if time began to heal even the deepest scars, leaving behind painful remnants, but also serving as a reminder that life marches on. Looking back now, I see the thin line where dreams end and harsh reality begins. Though many challenges still awaited me, I made a vow to remember the lessons drawn from that chapter of my life. This is a story of love and betrayal, joy and sorrow, a story that changed me forever and forced me to ask, can true love exist without mutual trust? Every passing moment, even the most excruciating, became an experience that taught me to value genuine love and to never be seduced by illusions. Night would fall, and with it came loneliness, into which I often immersed myself, reliving every moment as bright bursts of light in a dark realm of loss. In these fleeting recollections, I saw not only my own suffering, but also echoes of the love that once represented my dream and hope. Even as I clung to the belief that truth would eventually prevail, my mind insisted that evil sometimes comes dressed in the most beautiful attire. In those moments, I began to understand that every choice, every decision, leaves an indelible mark on the soul, and that sometimes the price of love is unbearably high. Thus continued my long struggle for truth and inner understanding, a constant battle between what I once was and what I must become. Each minute, each second, was infused with the awareness of a loss that grew more profound with time, as if an unseen hand was extracting the very spark that made me human. And when hints of a new life emerged on the horizon, I found myself increasingly recalling the times when Ashley had embodied my dreams and hopes. Those memories, once filled with joy and laughter, now turned into sources of pain and regret, reviving old wounds and prompting me to question whether it was possible to reclaim what had once been so carefree and blissful. Night after night, loneliness enveloped me as I struggled to drown my sorrows, each memory a reminder of what once was. Yet in those moments I also caught glimpses of the undeniable truth. The end of that chapter was but the beginning of something new. Bit by bit, I started gathering the fragments of my shattered heart and dared to look towards the future with a cautious hope. I remembered the first photograph we had taken, Ashley and I sitting on a park bench, our smiles reflecting in the sunlight as if eternal. And though those moments were now cloaked in melancholy, they taught me that the past is inescapable. Every moment, no matter how painful, remains part of who we are. Gazing at these memories, I tried to extract a lesson from our love, a lesson that should guide me to become stronger, wiser, and perhaps one day find a love free of deceit and falsehood. The invisible line between the past and the future gradually blurred, yielding to a new understanding of myself and the world. I began to see that no amount of regret can bring back what was lost, and that only the courage to move forward offers a chance to overcome the pain. In moments when memories felt almost tangible, I allowed myself to sink into nostalgia, not to drown in it, but to harness every drop of experience to become a better person. The path was strewn with thorns of anguish, yet these very thorns had tempered me, transforming the naive boy I once was into a man who understood that love is not just tender embraces, but the ability to forgive, overcome, and start anew. Fate, it seemed, still had surprises in store. One day, when the world was shrouded in gray, I met a young woman named Brianna, entirely different from Ashley in every conceivable way. Her sincerity, openness, and zest for life rekindled within me the long-dormant desire to believe in love again. Brianna didn't try to replace what was lost. Instead, she taught me to live in the present, to cherish the moments as they come, and to seek the light even in the darkest corners of the soul. And although the memory of betrayal still tormented me, I began to understand that sometimes it is precisely through pain that a new comprehension is born, a comprehension that paves the way for renewal. Step by step, I began to walk this path of healing, gaining confidence that my life could eventually be painted in new, brighter colors. The past, as painful as it was, ceased to act as an insurmountable barrier and instead became one fragment in the mosaic that shaped my character. Today, when I reflect on those challenging times, I see that Ashley's betrayal was not the end of my story, but a new beginning, a chance to confront the truth, to become stronger, and finally to learn how to love genuinely without betraying oneself. Thus, through a succession of turbulent experiences, doubts, pain, and unexpected encounters, I navigated the darkest night of my soul, and finally witnessed the dawn of a new life. This narrative is not merely a tale of betrayal, but a profound lesson that even shattered dreams can muster the strength for rebuilding, that even the most ruthless wounds may harbor the seeds of renewal if one is brave enough to face the truth. Slowly, though the pain lingered, I began piecing together the shards of my broken heart, daring once again to gaze into the future with hope. Each morning arrived with a quiet promise of change. I met the new day with cautious faith, faith that I could learn to forgive, forget, and perhaps open my heart again to sincere emotions. Gone was the innocence with which I had first met Ashley. In its place grew a maturity forged by pain and experience, a maturity that became the foundation for a new life, one in which trust and love were built on stronger pillars than before. I still remember the day while sorting through some old belongings, stumbled upon that first photograph of us sitting on a park bench, our smiles bright under the sun's glow, as if eternal. Those moments, now veiled in sorrow, nevertheless taught me that one cannot run away from the past. Every moment, no matter how painful, remains an integral part of who we become. Confronted with these memories, I sought to extract a lesson from the love we once shared. A lesson that would help me, in time, to become stronger, wiser, and maybe one day, to find a new love, free from deceit and false promises. Looking back now, it's clear that the boundary between past dreams and harsh reality had blurred. Even though many trials still lay ahead, I held on to the lessons learned from this journey. Every excruciating minute became an experience that reinforced my appreciation for genuine love and taught me never to be seduced by illusions. And while memories of the past sometimes still weighed heavy on my heart, I learned not only to forgive others, but also myself, accepting every lesson that life offered. That long, thorny road ultimately led me to a new dawn. A dawn where hope once again began to permeate every corner of my soul, promising that a future filled with true happiness and harmony was possible. This is the story of my journey, one of painful betrayal, heart-wrenching loss, and ultimately, the slow emergence of a renewed spirit. It is a story of love and dishonesty, of joy and suffering, that transformed me irrevocably and forced me to confront the question, can true love exist without trust? Every moment, no matter how agonizing, became part of the experience that taught me the value of honest affection and the peril of living in illusions. Now, as I stand here with scars on my heart, but with clarity in my mind, I know that all the trials I endured have only made me stronger. Every painful moment is now an experience that deepens my appreciation for authentic love and propels me forward, ever hopeful that someday life will bring the happiness and harmony I so earnestly deserve. And so, after enduring the torment of betrayal and the accompanying heartache, I managed to cast off the heavy shackles of the past and found strength in the promise that a new, meaningful life lay ahead. Every new morning became an opportunity to rebuild my destiny, to accept myself as I am, and to trust that, even after the harshest wounds, true love is indeed possible. This is my story, a continuous narrative without clear chapters, unfolding seamlessly from the initial enchantment, through the betrayal, to the eventual end of one painful era, and the hesitant beginning of another.